Hi, I'm David Allen. I'm the wine director for Wine Searcher, and we'd like to share some data relating to sales of Sauvignon Blanc in the US. This was originally presented at the Romeo Bragato conference in Blenheim in August 2017. Sales of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc in the US have been a success story of late, but perhaps we should examine this trend in the context of the whole US market. We looked at searches made on our website coming from the US in the 12 months to the end of July. There were over 45 million of them. We reviewed these searches by variety. To qualify as a search, the operation had to find a result by matching with a wine made from Sauvignon Blanc. Thus, a search for Silex Poulet Fumé counted the same as one for Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc ranks 12th on our list of varietal classifications. First of all comes Cabernet Sauvignon, with 7 million searches, or 15%. Then Red Bordeaux blends, so mostly Bordeaux, but perhaps also some Meritage, with 6.7 million searches, or about 14.8% of the total. Pinot Noir, including Burgundy, had 4.9 million searches, or 10%. Chardonnay, including white Burgundy, came next. Sangiovese and Nebbiolo both showed well, coming ahead of Champagne. Next, we have the obscure category Rare Red Blends, which is a bit of a catch-all designation that we use. Even the much maligned Merlot appears before Sauvignon Blanc, as do the Southern Rhone Blends and Syrah. Statistically, searches for Sauvignon Blanc at 800,000, or 2% of the total, weren't far ahead of those for Riesling. This does rather seem to put this massive trend for Sauvignon Blanc in the US into perspective. Perhaps this result also points to some limitations in the nature of our data. Wine Searcher is clearly used disproportionately by those searching for high-end Napa Cabernets, Clarets and Burgundies, over drinkers of fresh, fruity, easy-drinking whites. These consumers will buy a large proportion of their wine from multiple grocers, an area where we don't have comprehensive coverage. Personally, I'm happier to draw conclusions out of our data for Pinot Noir, as the nature of the variety makes it a better fit for the consumers who use our site and app and the merchants we collect data from. All the same, we should be able to derive some useful information from examining 800,000 searches. So perhaps the success story that is Sauvignon Blanc in the US can be seen by indexing the number of searches we've seen. At first, it isn't apparent at all. Looking at the 12 most searched for varieties, Sauvignon Blanc appears to have been lost at the bottom, falling further than any other variety in October. Clearly, demand slows between September and February, with people looking for red wines, champagnes, Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots and rare red blends for Christmas. From spring onwards, however, we see a steady upward trend. When we look closer, the success of an index is measuring the finishing position relative to the start. So here are the dots giving the finishing position of the index number of searches from year-end to year-end. Overall, Sauvignon Blanc is the second best performer of the most searched for varieties in this market, second only to Pinot Noir, and showing a 13% growth in searches across the year. Here we have two different scales, but we've brought them together to allow you to see the pattern for all and the principal components together. On the left, the number of searches coming from the US relating to the line in green. Below it are searches by country relating to the scale on the right for the US, New Zealand and France. From this, we see US and New Zealand wines doing better at Christmas, and a steeper upward trends from them to the end of July than we see from France. Here, we see demand for Sauvignon Blanc by state, with the height of the columns reflecting the volume of searches. Unsurprisingly, California and New York are the principal markets. As we do a quick coast-to-coast pass, you'll see how relatively small demand is in states such as Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota, or Nebraska, while Illinois, New Jersey, Florida and Texas all show reasonable volumes of searches. Then we break this demand by state into country of origin. We've chosen to look at France, the US and New Zealand, as they're the major players. Chile, the next country on the list, is pretty insignificant. The split shows demand for US wines dominating in California and on the west coast, while demand for French wines is strongest in New York and on the eastern seaboard. Here we show demand by city, with New York easily topping the number of searches for the variety. Los Angeles, San Francisco and the Bay Area, Seattle and Chicago all show heavy demand. When we overlay availability, shown here as circles whose size reflects the number of online offers in an area. An interesting picture emerges. Remember, these are online offers, so some shipping can take place where the law allows. It is, however, interesting to see no listings at all from merchants in Utah, Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, or North Dakota. Admittedly, these are not very populous states. Also, there are numerous search spikes without matching supply circles, for example in Memphis, Wichita, Kansas City, Omaha, Oklahoma City, and Columbus. There certainly still seems to be room in this market. So to finish up, here is an election-style graphic showing which country's Sauvignon Blanc searches dominate in each state. The greater the dominance, the darker the colour. We see US Sauvignons dominating in the west, also in Wyoming and Oklahoma, so perhaps they aren't such great opportunities, or maybe they are. On the east coast, Delaware stands out for its loyalty to domestic wines. Notably, New York, Oregon and New Jersey are the only states where searches for French Sauvignon Blancs dominate. To finish off our look at New Zealand Sauvignons in the US, we examined the pricing of Sauvignon Blanc wines using 5 pricing brackets. Unsurprisingly, domestically produced wines dominate in every category. Remember, this is after all listing data and not search data. The yellow line relates to the scale on the right of the page and shows the overall distribution of offers. Encouragingly, New Zealand makes its best showing in the strongest price sector, the $10 to $15 band. New Zealand's weakest showing is in the 2 most expensive price bands, $20 to $30 and $30 and above. Here, French wines are able to dominate listings for imported Sauvignon Blancs. In both price bands, New Zealand shows less than half the number of listings that are given to France. Clearly, there are opportunities to be exploited in these higher price brackets.